Hey, is this a good Peacemaker costume? I can't afford a real one, but I'm in my tidy whities. Well, they're kind of brown now, but yeah. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sandbox. With the first season of the first DCEU TV series, Peacemaker, officially complete, I thought now would be a great time to share my thoughts on the DCEU as a whole before we get some big entries later this year with Black Adam, The Flash, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Before we move on though, don't forget to share your ranking down in the comments below. I always love to see what other people think about these films. Starting at the bottom with number 12 should be no surprise with 2017's Justice League, aka Justice League, the Whedon cut. Originally envisioned, written, and directed by Zack Snyder, and then eventually released as the real cut of Justice League after years of denial from Warner Brothers, Joss Whedon stepped in to finish the film as Snyder had to step away for personal family reasons. And with Snyder gone, apparently all hope for a decent theatrical cut of Justice League disappeared with him. Whedon did a great job with the Avengers, but Justice League was written and set up very differently and thus required a different approach, an approach that is not in Whedon's wheelhouse. Instead of the original gritty and down-to-earth vision for the film, Joss dialed up the color to 11, stuffed in his childish quips, and edited the movie in a way that completely sabotaged Snyder's vision. Character development for The Flash is simplified, while Cyborg's arc is completely obliterated. Now, it's not all Joss Whedon's fault, even though over the years we've gotten countless complaints about his behavior on set and just how he treats human beings. But there were tons of development issues as well as a lot of studio intervention which rushed the film's production, leading to some bad, unfinished visual effects and an overall poorly polished final product. Warner Brothers also forced the film to be cut to 2 hours to get more butts in seats and sell more tickets, when we know that the real product was double that.
Not a great plan.
I went in wanting nothing but to love this movie, but the sabotage and betrayal of Snyder's vision in exchange for just an easy cash grab easily puts this at the bottom of my list. Coming in at number 11 is 2016's Suicide Squad. At first glance, this can feel like a really fun anti-hero team-up film with great action and great twists, but it's all a mask for a rather abysmal entry in the DCEU. Aside from Margot Robbie and Will Smith, the acting performances are all over the place, with some people taking it way too seriously while others are embracing the crazy. As for the action, it takes a while for anything ambitious to really come on screen, and when it finally does, it's mostly forgettable. The film is fluffed up with constant narration of things happening while we see them happening, which just feels like it's belittling to the viewer and just lazy. There's no real artistic expression going on here. Now, reportedly, director David Ayer has had similar complaints as Zack Snyder, with Warner Brothers stepping in, intervening, and complicating things during the production and post-production, which at this point would just not surprise me in the least. After Deadpool came out, Warner Brothers was scared that the film would flop because it was too dark and not lighthearted enough, so they brought in the company that edited the fantastic trailer to edit the actual film that we got to see in theaters.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
David Ayer does claim that there is an Ayer cut to this film, and I hope we get to see it someday in the future, but I think that's highly unlikely, seeing as Warner Brothers just pushed out a soft reboot sequel with James Gunn behind the camera. Next up at number 10, I have Wonder Woman 1984. On first watch, I enjoyed this one, but for the most part, I felt underwhelmed. However, on rewatch, I felt like this movie actually works on most levels. The storylines come together fairly well in the end, especially those revolving around Pedro Pascal's Max Lord. Diana having to learn to let go of Steve has its ups and downs, but the journey itself is enjoyable, having the fish out of water trope reversed onto Steve, who is now out of his element and for the most part in a completely different world post-World War I. I think Gal Gadot has her ups and downs as well as far as her performance goes. This is her 4th or 5th time as Wonder Woman, so I have no problem buying that she is Wonder Woman. She is. But I did feel like Patty Jenkins could have gotten a better performance out of her for a couple scenes. or at least used a better take. But I think what really holds this film back is the film doesn't really know what it wants to be. The film wants you to take it seriously, having a sympathetic villain who is chasing a fortune in oil while ruining his relationship with his son in the process, and a hero who has to learn to let go of what she loves for the greater good. And yet at the same time, the entire story revolves around a magic rock. Now, I'm fine with a demigoddess who is wielding a magical lasso and an invisible jet, but a magic rock? Absolutely not. That's where I draw the line. You know what? I'm done with this video. No, but in all seriousness, the film wants to be taken seriously, but also be lighthearted at the same time. And so with a script filled with cheesy dialogue and colorful characters, it's kind of hard to take any lesson that it's pushing seriously. Now, the stuff with Barbara and Cheetah work for a lighthearted story about characters who become corrupted by an evil monkey's paw god, but it's evident that she's really just in this for a big third act fight, which wasn't even that big or easy to see, as the visual effects fell flat and relied upon a darker set. It just felt like a late addition to a film that had already been delayed for years and years. I think her arc was supposed to be that thread that connects to the first sequence of the film where a young Diana learns that cheetahs never win. Get it? Cheetahs. Like cheaters? Okay. But in the end, that connection just didn't work. All this to say, I still like the film. It is leagues above Justice League, but it's also not one I would quickly rewatch over the rest on this list. Moving on to number 9, I have Birds of Prey and the terribly long title. This was actually a nice surprise in regards to what I was expecting. I'm still not a huge fan of the look of the film. I mean, the grimy underbelly of Gotham and costumes to match just aren't my taste. But the story is told in such a unique and fun way that it actually kind of reminded me of Deadpool. Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is on point here, and being the unreliable narrator that she is, the film really leaned into that fun way of storytelling. I can also appreciate the Birds of Prey themselves as great female heroines who want to help clean up the city and protect what they have. I was able to buy into each of their journeys and backstories, and I felt like the film never really forced anything about them onto me. They felt natural and real. As for what keeps this film relatively low on my list, it really just comes down to personal taste. I was half and half on the music and the humor. Some of it landed for me and some of it just didn't quite sit right. The story works as well as the emotional arcs at play, but I didn't really find myself blown away like I have for other films. I just don't feel personally connected or invested to this film. I just know I like it. But taking the number 8 spot is Aquaman. Now, this is a great example of a film that knows how to embrace its goofy and whimsical side with colorful yet intense characters and action scenes, but can also weave in darker scenes and deep character moments. Arthur's journey to rediscover his past and claim the throne is certainly one I bought into and felt invested in. This is not the same character from the comics, but a darker and pained version. On first watch, I was absolutely blown away with this film, even with its questionable song choices, some cheesy dialogue, and some underwater scenes that just looked really goofy. There are plenty of parts to this film that many will take issue with, as people do with any film, but it's just such a fun joyride that it's easy to forget them, if not forgive them. I thought for the most part the visuals were breathtaking, pun intended, and underwater Wakanda probably has the most gorgeous scenery in a DCEU film yet. The cinematography is also amongst the best as well in my opinion. James Wan's style just never disappoints me. The only thing left to wonder is, given all of the story threads that they took from the comic and put into this film, where could they go next? Luckily, we don't have to wait too much longer to find out. Next up at number 7 is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition. I am not counting the theatrical cut for this one, as the extra half hour really helps the film to work, filling in the cracks for the story and the motivations for certain characters. Look, I know some people will have this towards the bottom of this list. Doomsday, Wonder Woman's questionable power set, Batman and Superman both being easily manipulated by a Lex Luthor who apparently thinks he's the Joker.
Ahoy, ahoy! Write checks for Lex.
It's Cherry.
And the Martha scene, which personally I thought worked.
Martha!
There are certainly noticeable issues with this film. I mean, most people aren't dying to see Superman go to court, but Snyder's vision and direction for the film and his social commentary on how we would react to someone like Superman, coupled with Christ-like comparisons and Holy Trinity symbolism, really set this movie apart from the others. The darker versions of these characters are new interpretations that I never had anything against. I'm always up for new interpretations as long as they're interesting, and Snyder never really disappoints in that regard. When given the chance to simplify or go big, he always goes big, which makes it hard not to respect his craft. All this to say, I enjoy more parts of this one than I dislike, and the last hour of non-stop glorious action puts this one over the top. Getting to see these characters actually go at it against each other and then team up with each other is just a childhood dream come true. But coming in at number 6 is James Gunn, The Suicide Squad. I've got to say, I was not really looking forward to this one. I was well aware that it was a soft reboot sequel. I was aware of its all-star cast, as insanely big as it was. And I was aware of not only Gunn's, but also Warner Brothers' confidence in this movie. But for whatever reason, I just had a tough time getting excited for this one as its release date approached. But oh my goodness, was this a fun film. The characters, the style, especially those transitions, the blood and the gore, the humor, it all worked so well for me that right after finishing it, I was already itching to watch it again. The character arcs for Bloodsport and Ratcatcher 2 were of course the standouts, but the storytelling here, as simple as it was, really immersed me into the film. The visuals didn't blow my mind, but I didn't have any issues with them either, and the electrifying rock anthems definitely hyped me up during each action scene. Overall, this was just such a solid entry into the DCEU and well deserving of a sequel. Which leads me to my number 5, Peacemaker. I had no idea why they would want to make this series, considering Peacemaker's villainous twist in the Suicide Squad and just his overall unlikability, but oh my god, does this show put in the work to make you care and really turn his character around. This show is filled with powerful character moments, both good and bad, major and minor, that you really become invested in their stories and their motivations. The storytelling genius of Gunn continues here with the Suicide Squad, weaving in flashbacks, insane twists, and fun underappreciated rock songs. Gunn has definitely found his calling by bringing together a group of misfits who hate each other and having them go up against the impossible, which apparently is kaiju hive minds. And all of this happening during the best playlist of the year. The humor is a particularly great aspect of this show as well, giving each character their 15 minutes and making the show highly rewatchable for me.
I keep changing my facial expressions. He won't be able to recognize me in a lineup.
So you're compassionate about tape, but not brutally murdering people?
Yes.
Vigilante or knockoff Deadpool has got to be one of my new favorite characters, and Steve Agee in particular is always funny.
I got my penis caught in my friend Russell's zipper.
I'm sorry, I just gotta, where was Russell's penis?
Well, for a while, neither of us knew.
However, I will say that you guys probably know by now how I feel about politics being in my superhero films and movies. If it pertains to the films world, such as Man of Steel or Batman v Superman, I'm fine with it, but if it's making fun of or preaching about real life events, I don't want to hear it. I get enough of that in my day-to-day life, so I don't want it in my escapism superhero shows. Left or right, I don't care, it just usually leaves me with a sour feeling. That said, that's really the only drawback to this show for me. This is such an awesome series that really knows how to let loose and have fun, and I'm definitely looking forward to season 2. Coming in at number 4 is Wonder Woman. That's right, we're moving away from underwater Wakanda and into Amazonian warrior Wakanda. I mean, the parallels are there. Beautiful utopia with magical and powerful people and or materials that is miraculously hidden by some invisible force field, and it all gets messed up when some white guy brings in some outsiders. But in all seriousness, I just love the small scale and emotional journey that Diana goes along with Steve. The supporting characters are a fun group, the visuals are beautiful, and the story is simple yet effective. I'm a sucker for a fish out of water story, especially a hero origin one, but I'm an even bigger sucker for stories that add a twist to historical events. Which makes this film really hard for me to hate. Wonder Woman is a character-driven story, and so with characters that can add a unique depth to an otherwise lighthearted story, this easily secures a spot in my top 5. But kicking off my top 3, I have Man of Steel. It can be hard to accept a newer and darker version of a character as beloved as Superman, but as I said earlier, that's not something that I struggled with. That's not to say the film doesn't do anything wrong, nor that it does things that I would disagree with, but Snyder doesn't overlook these things either. He simply adds complicated context to make sense out of these things, and that's where I think the division comes. For example, Superman would never allow for a fight to take place within Metropolis. He would take the fight outside of the city to prevent anyone from getting hurt in collateral damage. However, this version of Superman is very new to fighting, as he's just accepted his new role and stepped out of the shadows. It's clear he doesn't know the right way to approach things yet. He carries emotional baggage, he's inexperienced, and he is severely outgunned in this film. So it's no wonder why a fight in Metropolis does end up happening. Plus, if he simply tried to bait Zod to fight him outside of the city, he would still have to deal with the World Engine, and I don't think Zod would even give him so much as a passing glance. All this to say, Snyder puts a lot of thought into his films. I said it earlier, when given the chance to simplify things or swing for the fences, the dude goes big. Just look at the first 20 minutes of this film and the level of detail given to Krypton. He puts thought into his films, and Man of Steel is no different. So every time that I rewatch this and think about it, there is more that I catch and more that I can latch onto. It is a very intimate and rather slow story that primarily serves as a character deep dive with social commentary. It asks big questions and methodically attempts to answer them. It's a large-scale story that takes its time to get to the good stuff, but when you do get to the good stuff, it actually feels earned.
Wow, that's deep. Really deep.
Plus, the musical score by Hans Zimmer is easily one of my favorites, and I can't recall a single scene with poor CGI or VFX. All in all, it is a solid movie that is well structured and well executed, at least for my taste. But taking the number 2 spot, my runner-up is Shazam. Shazam! Do you guys feel the draft? This is just such a fun movie that incorporates everything I love about superhero films. Plus, I'm a huge horror fan, so having Sandberg helm in the film and throw in a little bit of horror was perfectly to my taste. The journey of Billy Batson's search for family is wonderfully done and really tugs at the heartstrings, plus taking place during Christmas is always a nice little bonus. The film is lighthearted and has fun with its rather simple storyline, but the acting is top-notch here on all fronts, especially Zachary Levi tapping into his inner child. I love the mythology that this film explores, and while the villain isn't the most complicated one we've seen, he is still a competent threat and actually makes rational decisions for a villain in my opinion. This film is just such a blast for me to watch. It's highly rewatchable, and it transfers its high energy into you, leaving you satisfied and excited for the next one. Taking my number 1 spot is none other than Justice League. That's right, the real Justice League, also known as the Snyder Cut, but it's the real Justice League. This film is just amazing in every way, and it's not just the years of anticipation talking. I have rewatched this one twice now, and it is just marvelous how thought-provoking and well-realized this story is, while simultaneously delivering some of the best action scenes and most incredible visuals. The humor is a bit of a hit or miss for me, but given that it does away with all of the Whedon quips, it actually feels kind of natural and refreshing. And the soundtrack here also completely revitalizes this cut of the film. I was genuinely surprised how engaged I was throughout this 4-hour epic, and it really is an epic. It's DC's Lord of the Rings. It brings together everything from Man of Steel and Batman v Superman while still having time to flesh out new characters like Cyborg and Flash and set them up for future projects as well. It is a real shame that Warner Brothers didn't have enough faith in this version of the film, the real and only version I mean, that they would try to hide its existence from the fans for years. And while I'm saddened that we will probably never get to see this story continue in the way that Snyder might have meant for it, I am beyond thrilled to simply have gotten to see Snyder's vision come to fruition, officially ending his Superman trilogy. But those are just my thoughts on the film, and I would love to hear yours, so don't forget to share your ranking down in the comments below. I really do like seeing how people rank these films. It was really tough for me to do this one. I was thinking and rethinking and editing and switching and non-stop editing, and I'm probably still not completely happy with it, but it's always fun to do and just talk about these films. So for those of you who do engage in the comments, thank you. I'll meet you guys down there. But as for now, thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you all next time.